Pranams, good evening to all of you. Srimad Bhagavad Gita begins with, or we can say, begins on the battle of Kurukshetra. And the mighty warrior Arjuna gets overwhelmed there. And this overwhelming is not due to the outside forces, not due to the enemies who are there in front of Arjuna. When I say not the physical enemies, but basically the inner conflict that got created within the Arjuna. See, Arjuna sees his own kin and kith, the teachers, elders, relatives, right, on both sides, and got struck by the vishada, the emotional breakdown. Again, got struck by the dharma sammudhata, meaning moral confusion. And also the consequences, the fear of consequences, the bhala bhayam or the papa bhayam. So what happens to Arjuna? The psychological collapse. And that collapse is setting the stage for the Gita Shastra, for the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And the despair of Arjuna becomes the doorway to the wisdom. That is why the first chapter is called Vishada Yoga, Arjuna Vishada Yoga. It is not Arjuna Vishada, right? It is the yoga. That Vishada is becoming the nimitta or the beginning of inquiry in Arjuna. Similarly, this is also a trigger for all of us to go inward and address the difficulties that we all face in our life, right? In our lives, we all face different moments, right? Where those moments, most of the times, the conflict between duty and emotions, or conflicts between the deeds of the people around us and the emotional considerations that we have to make, whether it is right to tell no to them, though I know they are doing wrong. Should I do that? Or sometimes the clarity is also clouded. Clarity gets clouded due to the attachment. Though we know we are doing wrong, but sometimes taking things for granted. So in all our lives we face this kind of moments where the duty conflicts with the emotion, and our clarity gets clogged by the attachment. So here Bhagavan Krishna starts the teaching from the second chapter. In fact, in the first chapter, Bhagavan Krishna actively listens to Arjuna. And from second chapter onwards, this teaching begins. The yoga of knowledge, that is where the Sankhya Yogam comes as the second chapter, where the essential teaching is around only one subject: the nature of the self, the nature of the individual self. That's where the affirmation comes through the teaching. What is the affirmation? What is the constant teaching that Bhagavan is giving to all of us? This body is temporary. The self is the only eternal. Death is just a change in the form. So what is permanent? This body is permanent. Sorry, the soul is permanent. The self is permanent. The self is eternal, whereas the body is temporary. And what is the essential teaching when we say the self is eternal? You are not this body. You are not this mind. You are not any of these changing things. You are the witness. So this is the biggest clarity that Bhagavan gives to all of us. You are not the changing body, mind, intellect, senses. So you are the self, you are the witness. So that is where the removal of fear at the grassroots level is addressed here in the second chapter, Sankhya Yoga. That is where the second chapter lays the foundation of the Jnana. The nature of the self. You are the self. You are not the changing body. You are not the limited object such as the body, mind, intellect, sense. You are not the body. You possess the body. You understand the difference between the perishable body, mind and the imperishable self. The imperishable Atman. And that is the grand vision. Right? That is the grand vision Bhagavan is opening up to all of us. You are not the perishable body, mind, intellect, sense. You are the eternal self that is imperishable. And the opening up of the grand vision that I am this awareness. And I am not this mere limited personality. So that is very much needed, because knowing the true core, knowing the true self, that sets the expectation on how to act in this world. That is where secondary things are like dharma and how to execute duty and all. But primarily one should understand who truly are you. So when we have that understanding, that sets the expectation on each one of us to how to act in this world. Then comes the duty, then comes the dharma, where you need to perform your duty. You need to, in this case Arjuna as a warrior, you need to perform your duty as a yodha. Don't escape the action due to the emotional issues that you are undergoing. And the right actions, how you need to perform, because you need to have the right actions guided by the clarity. Right? Most of the time, the issue that we all face is lack of clarity due to different reasons. One could be the attachment. One could be the biases that we have. So that is where chapter 2 sets the introduction to Karma Yoga, where Bhagavan's core teaching is around you have control over the actions but not on the results. So that is where the verses such as Karmanyevadhikaraste ma bhaleshu gatajana. You just work without the attachment to the outcomes. You have control over the actions. And if you see from a practical point of view, you just do your duty without clinging to the results. Is this logical? You just focus on executing the duty. And what is important here is you need to have the right knowledge or the true knowledge of yourself. When you have the right knowledge about the self, this sets the stage to Sthita Prajna. And if you remember these verses in the second chapter, Prajahadi Yada Kaman Sarvan Partha Manogatan Atmani Eva Atmana Tushta Sthita Prajna Tada Uchyade. Not only that, Dukkeshu Anudiknamana Sukheshu Vigadaspraha Vida, Raga, Bhaya, Krodha. Sthida, Dhi, Muni, Uchade. So who is a Muni? Who is a Sthida Prajna? Prajahadi Yada Kaman Sarvan Partha Manogadan. Atmani Eva Atmanatushta. The one who sees that self, who rejoices in that self, who has got the true understanding of this self, is called as the Sthida Prajna. Sthida Prajna Tada Uchyade. And what is the essential quality or the trait of a Sthida Prajna? Dukkheshu Anudiknamana, Sukheshu Vigadaspraha, Vida Raga Bhaya Krodha. That Sthida Prajna is also called as a Muni. The one who is not affected due to the Sukha Dukkham in life, not affected by the Raga Bhaya Krodha, having the steadfastness in life. Such a person is called as the Sthida Prajna or a Muni. Such a realized person, right? Such a realized person is also called as a Karma Yogi, a Jnani. Such a person is always mentally stable over success and failure. Also has got the control over the senses. When we say the control over the senses, such a person will have the control over the excessive desires. So when mental stability is there amidst of the success, failure, when such a person is having control over the senses, when such a person is having control over the excessive desires, automatically the inner stability will come. When the inner stability is there, when that inner stability will come? When the knowledge of true self is there. When the knowledge of true self is there, that person will not get affected due to the external success and failure, will not get carried away with the senses, will not get carried away with the excessive desires. So the question will come, what is the practical relevance of this teaching? The practical relevance is all about how we can reduce the anxiety. How we can reduce the anxiety of anxiety on the results. Also, this teaching will build emotional resilience in all of us. Because the dependency on the external things, dependency on the external success and failure will be very less. Because the freedom is there from within. The freedom is all about the knowledge of that self. And also, it helps us to make decisions in life under pressure. Let me try to bring a classical story. Once our Janaka Maharaja, called as the Janaka, the King Janaka, called as the, in one way, Janaka Maharaja is called as a Rajarshi, the emperor of the kingdom Mithila. Janaka Maharaja was attending a discourse, a satsanga in his palace with the Yajnavalkya Maharshi. And also understand that many other seekers were there who were attending the satsanga or the spiritual discourse along with the Janaka Maharaja. And all of a sudden, during this satsanga, people start running to the satsangam saying that the Mithila is on fire, the kingdom is on fire, the palace is on fire. All other seekers, when I say other seekers, including the rishis, munis, the sadhus, all those seekers got panicked and they started running because just a news came that Mithila is on fire. So everybody started running. My hut, though it's small, it is my place. My clothes, my racks, my belongings. Oh, my things will get burned. I have to rush. Everybody started running out of anxiety. It is quite natural, right? But the king Janaka remained completely still. And in between, these palace guards came with very high agitation. They expressed the high agitations and went to the king in between the satsanga. And they disturbed the Janaka. Disturbed in the sense, went to Janaka and tried to whisper something closely, very crisply. And then they left. So what Janaka Maharshi did, Janaka Maharaja did, Janaka instructed something back. Very, maybe one sentence that probably, but they should do, but what should be the way forward, right? So Janaka instructed very crisply and they left the place. And the satsanga continued. And here the Yajnavalkya Maharshi gets astonished at the behavior of the king Janaka. And at the end, the Yajnavalkya Maharshi expressed that how strange that you have continued to sit in the satsang for almost an hour after they came and told this news. When such critical incident happens in your palace, how strange that you continue to sit for another 1 hour. So here the Janaka Maharaja says, Name pranashyati mithilayam pradiptayam. My wealth is unlimited. And yet I have nothing to do. Even if the entire Mithila city gets burned to ashes, nothing of mine will get destroyed. Mithilayam pradiptayam name dehyati kinchana. So you may think that this is carelessness, right? How a very big emperor saying that nothing will affect me. So you may ask, that this is not a carelessness. It is the inner freedom. It is the complete inner freedom while living fully in this world. What an emperor can do otherwise? Emperor can give instruction to the people. But it is up to the Janaka Maharaja, correct? To allow whether my inner freedom is disturbed or touched. So this is one of the examples. Nivritti in pravritti. Inner withdrawal amidst actions. Engaged externally, but not attached internally. And this is the knowledge that one should possess in life. Now the question comes from Arjuna. to Bhagavan Krishna. In the end of third chapter, or maybe in the beginning of third chapter, you can see the question is asked by Arjuna to Krishna. Jayasi ched karmanaste mada buddhir janardana tadakim karmani khore mam niyo jayasi kesava. So Krishna, if the knowledge is superior, then why are you pushing me to do this dreadful action? Why are you asking me to fight the war? Because you say knowledge is important. If self-knowledge is important, then why I should, or why you are pushing me to this dreadful action of war? And you also said that the realization lies in the inner calm. Why are you making me to swing the sword at my own kin and kith? If knowledge and renunciation are supreme, why one should do the action? So that is where the third chapter clearly told that in the real world, with this knowledge, one cannot escape. Clearly told, one has to engage in life without the attachment. Like how a lotus blooms in a muddy water. Right? Do you think the lotus will carry the characteristics of the mud or the water? So that is where the art of staying inwardly free while we act in this world very dynamically. So here Bhagavan says in the third chapter to the question that Arjuna asked, why are you asking me to do this dreadful war? Why are you forcing me to do when you say knowledge is superior? So that is where Bhagavan said, there are two ways. Lokesmin dividhanishta pura prokta mayanaha jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yogina. The path of knowledge called as the Jnana Yoga. For those people who are inclined inward. And for the people who are action oriented, the path of selfless action, that is called as the Karma Yoga for the active people. And these two paths lead to only one goal. And we need to understand that these two paths probably would become the necessary aspects for the different phases or the life phases of all of us. But understand that these two paths, what are those paths? Jnana Yogam and the Karma Yoga. So you know your temperament. If you are not having much actions to do in this world, go for the path of knowledge alone. But if your build, if your temperament is to do actions in this world, if you are an energetic engager, you cannot run away. So whether you are inward inquirer or an energetic engager, please understand that these two paths will lead to one. So the twofold nishtha, or so called as the commitment. And what is common in both lifestyles, whether it is Jnana Yoga or Karma Yoga, what is common? The pursuit of knowledge is common. And here Bhagavan Krishna clarifies Arjuna that, what is that? Action is very inevitable. No one can remain without doing actions. And life itself will demand us to participate. So if that is the case, what is the next step? One should do the actions with right attitude. Perform the action as a duty. Perform your work as a worship. So this only will help us to manage the frustration and desire in life. Manage it, right? Because frustration and desire will always take us for a toss. So when we know how to perform action as a duty, how to perform work as a worship, that itself will help us to manage desires and frustrations in life. When with this clarity, we will get encouragement in life to take up responsibilities. That is where Bhagavan says Karma Yoga is the powerful discipline. And again, why this is a powerful discipline? What would be the outcomes out of this? When you perform the work when we perform the actions as a duty, when we perform work as a worship, this becomes a beautiful discipline to purify our own mind. And what happens? When the mind gets purified, it becomes like a clean glass. And if you see the last verse in the 3rd chapter, you have seen that Indriyani paranyahu indriyebhya parammana manasastu parabuddhir yo buddhe paradastu sa. So the hierarchy starts from the body, then the indriyam, then the manas, then the buddhi. Beyond the buddhi, buddhe paradastu sa. The self is superior to everything. So when the mind is purified, when the mind is clear, when the mind is clean, it becomes like a clean glass where you are reflecting the consciousness without any kalanga. Because that Atman, that self is the supreme. And if you see the hierarchy, Indriyani paranyahu indriyebhya paramanaha. Senses, the mind, the intellect, and the self. So when the mind is clean, you will be able to realize the self. So that is where Bhagavan Krishna enables Arjuna to bring the clarity from the confusion. Clarity to do the right things, to do the right action. That is the journey that Bhagavan asks us to do. The first 3 chapters essentially sets the context like this. The confusion, the dilemma of Arjuna. Then the induction of right knowledge. Who truly are you? The self. And with that knowledge, how to act in this world so that you are not getting affected. So essentially the last 2 chapters emphasizes on the nature of the self and importance of the right actions. Now the question will come, right? How do I live, or how do I inculcate this wisdom in my daily life? That is where the 4th chapter comes as the Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, answering this question. Wisdom in action, how to act with right understanding. About transforming actions into wisdom and wisdom into liberation. So in fact, Arjuna asked this question, if knowledge is superior, then why are you asking me to act? Right? So Bhagavan still insisted that you have to work, you have to do the actions. Essentially, the action-oriented life, so-called as the Karma Yoga and the Jnana Yoga, will lead to only one goal. But you need to have this knowledge. And what is the role of knowledge in my life? And what is the relationship between knowledge and action? These are very logical questions that will come to us. And one side you say you don't have attachment. So that is where, what is real renunciation in life? What is the real meaning of renunciation in the deepest sense? We may think that renunciation is applicable for the people who leave the world, who run away from the world, or who leave from the world. They don't have any actions to do in this world. But the real renunciation is the inner renunciation, the parityaga. And that parityagam, that renunciation is possible in the middle of our day-to-day life and the daily roles that we undergo. This is the real renunciation. That is why the chapter name is called as Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Karma Sannyasa Yoga, through Jnana. So through right knowledge, how to transform our actions from the source of bondages into the means of freedom. And what is or how the real renunciation happens in us. See, most of us have this question, right? When we work in this world, right? We all work in corporates, or probably if you are working in social service, or few in corporates, tech industries, the question will come, so how do I work in this world? At one side, I have a lot of challenges. The expectations in the world is changing, even in a company. Technology is changing. How will I rapidly adapt with the changing technologies? How will I lead things? How will I work? How will I incorporate those changing things in my life or in my jobs? How will I raise my family? How will I be a good family man? At the same time, I also need to be a responsible citizen, build things for the betterment of the society, to the world. And at the same time, I should not get lost in these things, right? And I should not be consumed by my own ego or others' ego. How will I balance things in life and ensure that I am not affected by these things? And at the same time, I should enjoy my life. This is a very practical, complex question that we all have. In the middle of these intense activities, how will I find peace? How will I find true purpose in my life? Or in the middle of the greatest silence, how will I find these intense activities coexisting? Or when I have a tension, should I act? Should I renounce the work? Should I go or should I discard? What should I focus? Should I focus on success or should I focus on my inner peace? Or how long I will chase these kind of things? I am also getting burned out. Should I truly engage in this world or should I withdraw? Or should I act or avoid to act? That can be more safe. That is where Arjuna also felt. So now this chapter brings a clarity that it is not about choosing between action and renunciation. It is not about between action and renunciation, choose one. It is not like that. It means what? You have to have action as well as renunciation. But what is really needed? Understanding on how to act with right knowledge. So now Bhagavan Krishna does something very interesting here. Not at all giving a lecture from the beginning of this chapter. Bhagavan is bringing some sort of a history or a origin of this wisdom. Because this knowledge is timeless, it is tested, it is having a value, it is having an authenticity. And this wisdom is not a new idea. It is not something new, it's not a new teaching. It is a timeless wisdom. And it has passed through many generations. Yeah, nothing is new. I am not going to teach anything new, Arjuna. That is what Bhagavan is trying to say here. This wisdom is not a new. When I say the wisdom, the knowledge of the self, how to do actions, how not getting affected, how to be peaceful. This wisdom is timeless wisdom. It is having value, it is having authenticity, and it has been passed through different generations. We'll start chapter 4, Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Imam Vivasvade Yogam Proktavanaham Avyayam Vivasvan Manave Praha Manu and Ikshvaku Bravid. Imam Vivasvade Yogam Proktavan Aham Avyayam Vivasvan Manave Praha Manu Ikshvaku Abravid. I taught this imperishable knowledge to Vivasvan. Imam, this Vivasvade, to Vivasvan, this yogam I taught to Vivasvan first. Who is Vivasvan? The chief of the solar, meaning the sun god. I gave this knowledge to the sun god, sun. Proktavan aham avyayam. I taught this avyayam, this knowledge which is avyayam, this is imperishable, to Vivasvan first, and later in this way to the sun god, to the Manu, Manave Praha. I taught this later to Manu. Then Manu Ikshvaku Abravid. Then Manu to Ikshvaku Abravid. I taught this. I taught this imperishable knowledge or imperishable yoga to whom first? Vivasvan, the sun. Then taught to Manu, and from Manu to the Ikshvaku Vamsha, the Ikshvaku, the ruler. What is this knowledge? The knowledge of Brahman, the knowledge of the self was transmitted from the beginning. So Krishna tells that he is the one who has introduced this knowledge in the Veda from the beginning itself, as Shruti. And we have to understand, this is not the physical Krishna talking here, who is contemporary with Arjuna. This is the consciousness. So this knowledge through Shruti gave or taught to the Vivasvan, the head of the Surya Vamsham, the head of the sun clan. Who gave this knowledge to Suryan? This knowledge came directly from the Ishwaran. What is this knowledge? When we say knowledge of Atman, self, the wisdom of right living and actions by knowing your true self. When we say knowledge, everything, every aspect of this law of the universe, including, for example, the gravity, it worked from the beginning. Probably the gravitational principle was invented or discovered by somebody, but gravity worked from the beginning. The laws of universe are eternal. The laws of our inner lives are also eternal. The mind, action, peace, the true self. Everything is eternal. And people who lived well before all of us already discovered this truth. And there is no new truth that we will also discover. But to know this truth, what we just need to reconnect with that truth. And the truth is absolutely pathless. Right? And the truth usually comes through the parampara or sampradaya, the lineage. Because this truth has to flow down, or we can say the truth has to flow downward from one generation to the next generation. From the sun, the knowledge by which one gets established in the self, one gets established instantaneously in the timeless, spaceless consciousness. And from the sun, Manu inherited. Manu is who? Manu is the intelligent man. Manu, intelligent. That is where the memory-based knowledge, the Smriti Prasthanam, this Sruti Smriti. The intelligent man, then through the parampara, it landed into the Ikshvaku Vamsham. Ikshvaku, again the ruler. The sagely kings, we can say Rajarshis. And from the Ikshvaku Vamsham to the householders, to the next generations. And we need to understand that the same knowledge which was given to Vivasvan, Manu, Ikshvaku, and the generations after them, and I will give the same knowledge to you, Arjuna, once again. That inexhaustible, incorruptible knowledge. What is this knowledge? The power of the self. Who truly are you? The power of self. And this knowledge is what? Avyayam, imperishable. And when you invoke, or when you have the knowledge, when you realize that knowledge, you are unlocking it. You are having the access to the inexhaustible self. And this knowledge cannot be deteriorated. And don't think that this knowledge was given to sun and that was an old knowledge and now it is a new knowledge, because the knowledge is same. Satyam remains same. And we worship sun as a visible God because sun is an undeniable source of life that gives clarity, that shows actions in front of us, that shows discipline in front of us. For example, the regularity that sun maintains. Sun brings sun becoming the symbol of consistency. You agree with me? Sun becoming the symbolism of selfless giving. Sun becoming the symbolism of illumination. So that is where in our Sampradayam, sun is worshipped as a manifestation of the divine order. In the Ramayana, we can see the Aditya Hridaya Mantra. Sandapa Nashagaraya Namo Nama, Andagara Andagaraya Namo Nama, Chindamane Chidanandaya De Nama, Nihara Nashagaraya Namo Nama, Moha Vinashagaraya Namo Nama, Shantaya, Raudraya, Soumyaya, Khauraya, Kantimadam, Kantirubaya De Nama, Stavara Jangama Charyaya De Nama, Devaya Vishwega Sakshane De Nama. So, sun is chosen as the God, as sun is the best example in front of us, showing what, giving, shining, acting without any attachment. In another way, we can say the wisdom given to sun in the form of cosmic intelligence, and then to Manu, Ikshvaku, there comes the dharma, karma, all those things. From the cosmic intelligence, these things came into picture, and the knowledge given to sun remains same. And this knowledge is inherited from one generation to another generation through the parampara or the sampradayam. In another way, we can bring the verse here from Srimad Bhagavatam, the Chatusloki Bhagavatam, where Bhagavan reveals this knowledge to Brahma, the highest knowledge to Brahma, right? Everything arises from me, everything exists in me, everything revolves into me. Jnanam paramaguhyam mem yadvijnana samannitam sarahasyam tadangam cha grahana gedidam maya hridertham yat pradiyeda na pradiyeda cha atmani tadvidvad atmano maya yadabhaso yadadamaha. And you may feel that I am separate from that self. That separation is an illusion. That is where Bhagavan says, Tadvidvad Atmano Maya. Due to my Maya, you feel that there is a separation. And that is an illusion. And further it says, Slokas says, Yada Mahanti Bhudani Bhudeshu Chavaseshu Anupravishtani Apravishtani Tada Teshu Nateshwaram. That divinity is within you, and that is beyond you also. So you need to know, you need to realize what exists always and everywhere. You need to realize that consciousness, you are that. And what comes and goes, you need to understand that it is your body, it is the world, it is changing objects. And what is that which is not changing? That truth, that Brahman. And you are that self. Now the verse number 2. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakkale neha mahada yogo nashta parantapa. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakkale neha mahada yogo nashta parantapa. So this knowledge I gave to sun, to Manu, to Ikshvaku, and this knowledge was handed down from generation to generation. But what happened over a period of time? This tradition was lost. And if you see our ancient sages, they all were family men. And this knowledge has handed down through parampara, the family traditions. What is this family tradition? The Brahma Vidya. How this Brahma Vidya passes from one generation to another generation. And though those people lived a life with perfect balance, they lived a life by admitting the forces of destiny. They lived a life by incorporating the challenges from the world. But due to the Maya that we have seen in Chatusloki Bhagavata also, due to the forces of Maya, due to the due to the lapse in time, over a period of time, what happened? This yoga is lost. In Srimad Bhagavatam, we can see in the Tritiya Skandam, Esha Atmavado Avyakto Nashta Kalena Kuyatam Pravartayidum Dehamimam Vidhi. So, people who could not grasp this knowledge, so they try to use, or they try to understand this knowledge using their senses. With the senses, you cannot grasp this knowledge. Right? The sensory knowledge, or they lost the knowledge to sense this truth, which is avyaktam. This self is unmanifest. The ultimate goal of the self is unmanifest. Esha atmavado avyakto nashta kalena bhuyasa tam pravartayidum dehamimam vidhi mayabhrudam. And in the Gita Bhashyam, Bhagavan Bhashyagaran Jagadguru Shankaracharya says, Durbalan Ajitendriyan Prapya Nashtam Yogam Imam Upalabhya Logam Cha Apurushartha Sambandhina. What is the term here? Ajitendriya. The people who could not control the senses, and they slipped to understand this truth. They could not realize the yoga within. It doesn't mean that they lost it, because they missed the bus. Because they become ajitendriya. They could not control their senses. They positioned themselves in the material world, and they slipped the yoga within. That's why I told Indriyani Paranyahu in the last chapter ending, 42nd verse of Karma Yoga. Indriyani Paranyahu Indriyebhya Paramana Manasastu Parabuddhriyo Buddhe Paradastu Sa. So what is superior? Atma is superior. The self is superior in the hierarchy, right? Body, senses, mind, intellect, the self. If you don't have the knowledge of the self, then karma becomes a bondage. And if you know the self, yoga will bring freedom in you. Those who know this secret becomes the free people. They utilize this freedom. How? Through the Karma Yoga. And with what? With the knowledge of the self. And what will they do? They will be able to tackle the bondage. And automatically the yogam comes in them. Automatically the freedom comes in them. So I gave this knowledge to Vivasvan. Imam Vivasvade yogam proktavanaham avyayam Vivasvan manave praha Manu and Ikshvaku abravit evam parambara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakale neha mahada yogo nashta parantata. So what is really needed? The knowledge of self is needed to overcome the bondage of karma. So you know your true self. Yoga will become a freedom. And the people who know this secret, they will become free in life. They will become the real karma yogi in life. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyati. Om Shanti Shanti.